Hey going, I'm Stu from Iceberg Stew Industries. Today I'm going to be going through and overhauling this Mikuni Carbie, which is the standard Mikuni Carbie from a DR650. I've already done a fair bit of work to this Carbie. I've done the Pro Cycle jetting, needle kit, also done the slide in here. It's basically opened up for a big bore exhaust and open air box. Runs absolutely amazingly, flawless. But the only thing is at the moment when the bike is stopped and the fuel is on, it will actually drip out of the breather here. So the needle and seat inside the float bowl must be not sealing properly. So what I've got is a Mikuni rebuild kit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this whole Carbie today and rebuild it with this kit and show you how to do it and set it up step by step. So first up, I'm just going to go through the whole thing with Carbie cleaner. So once the Carbie's all clean and blown out, I basically just like to give it a good squirt with some silicone spray. So yeah, obviously it's you know, the Carbie cleaner is pretty harsh, so this just obviously keeps those little bits all nice and lubricated as well at the same time. I really coat the shit out of the things. And then we'll start pulling this thing to pieces. They're really easy. There's nothing to be afraid of with the Carbie. They're easy to just pull apart, put back together again. You know, we don't have to take 3/4 of this thing. We don't even have to touch. So, you know, these are for your accelerator linkages. Don't touch them. You know, we'll have a look at that gauze in there just for a bit of a squeeze. You know, we're not going to basically fiddle with any of the settings. We're just really going to just be replacing bits. So we'll do the bottom of the carb first. We'll pull off the bowl and have a look in there. So this is your air mixture screw here. I generally have this at 2 turns out. So basically all the way in and then 2 full turns out. I'll just pull this out just so that you can have a look at it, but be careful there. Actually, I'm not sure if this is, but some of them have, yes, an O-ring in there. So if you can see that, it's got a spring and a little O-ring. So you've got to be careful that you don't lose that. Just have a look at it. Now I can see that this one here, it's got a bit of skank on it. So I'm going to give that a bit of a squirt. Make sure she's all good. And then replace that. So the Carbie kit itself, it actually does come with O-rings. So brand new O-rings. So one of those O-rings will go on the end of this air screw. It doesn't come with a new screw, just with a new O-ring. So basically we've got an O-ring, we've got a washer, a spring. I'll just zoom in a bit on that. So as you can see, we've got the needle, that's your air mixture screw. You've got a washer, you've got an O-ring. Now this O-ring, I can feel it's still soft, it should be alright, but because I've got a new one, I'm going to put a new one in there. And the spring, it's a bit dirty, so I'm going to clean that and then reassemble that. So I've just cleaned these parts up now with just this toothbrush. It's an old toothbrush and some silicone and some Carbie cleaner. So they're beautiful. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the new washer and the new O-ring out, reassemble it back into its correct hole. So here we have the new items. So first put the spring on, then we put the washer on, and we put our new, I mean you can see the size difference. See how this one here on the left is the old one, it's swollen up compared to the one on the right. So put our new seal in there, O-ring. She's all done, looking beautiful. Now we're going to put that back into its hole. And as I was saying, this gets screwed all the way in and then back out 2 turns. You know that because it's pretty flat there. So half a turn, 1 turn, 1.5 turns, 2 turns. And that's how you set your air screw. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our bowl off. I actually have put these bolts in here. Usually they'll use Phillips head. So I hate trying to get these things off when they're Phillips heads. They just seem to tighten up over time. I don't know why, but they're a real nightmare if they're just Phillips heads. So best thing to do is replace them with Allen key heads. I'll loosen one off. Then I'll loosen the other one off. And then basically just pull these out. Once we've got them out, basically that bowl just falls off. So the first thing we look at in here is we check for any shit that's been trapped in the bottom of the bowl, and it looks really clean. So I don't actually run any fuel filters on my bike, just the gauze filter in the tank and no inline fuel filters. And the bike's done, well, probably 30,000 kilometers, and this Carbie's been off once at probably 15,000 kilometers, and as you can see, absolutely no issues whatsoever there. There is no shit in that bowl at all. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give that a good clean out with some Carbie cleaner and put it to the side. The seal itself looks to be in pristine condition. I really wouldn't need to change that, but just for the sake of it, I'm going to change it. So yeah, still in excellent condition. So changing the seal, it's very easy. Just a matter of popping the old one out. You definitely wouldn't need any silicone or anything of the likes. You don't put any adhesive on here whatsoever. Just a matter of pulling this off. When you get to the section here, should just slide off. Tiniest little bit of very fine dust in there, but as you can see, that's immaculate. So we'll compare that to the new one, and yeah, you wouldn't really be able to tell a difference at all. Both in excellent, well, this one's brand new, this one's, the only thing that you can sort of see is this one here on the left, because it's been in the Carbie for a fair while, it has swollen. So it's just slightly larger in its diameter. That's really the only thing you can tell. So now that's all clean, I just clean that all out with Carbie cleaner. We put our new seal in. It's really easy. Just basically lay it in there. There's no trick to it whatsoever. It just goes in like a dream. Fits there perfectly. And that's really step 1 done. Next thing we're going to have a look at here is the float. Now the float just literally pulls out. It's not held in by any screws or anything like that at all. It just pops out. And that's it. That's your float. So just in the back here is the needle and seat. And even though it looks fine, it's not. Now that's how you would adjust your float as well. See this little tab in here? That float is, here's your new one. So the new one, the tab's quite a bit further down. So what do I do there? So as you can see, I don't know if it's getting that in the camera, the new one is further down. So yeah, this is a stock Mikuni item. It's not an aftermarket brand. So this is a Mikuni genuine spare part. See how that's working? The way it bounces like that means that it's definitely at the point where it can close, but is it closing fully? Maybe I had that raised a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do here is I have a look at this one. See, it bounces a bit more. It's in better condition. So I may regret this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that float in the position that it's in at the moment. It's risky, but it's what I'm going to do. So before I actually reassemble this, I'm just going to pop the jets out, have a quick look at them, make sure there's no crap in them, and then I'm going to reassemble the bottom half of this Carbie. So now we have two jets. So this is your main jet, and then you have your pilot jet down inside here. So this one goes from sort of idle to quarter throttle. The main jet then becomes open, and you're looking at the one that I've got in here is the biggest one that I could find, which is a 155. So, and this does the rest of your acceleration. So we'll have a look at these two jets and see what condition they're in. So to get the pilot out, it's pretty small in there. You need a small, thin screwdriver such as this. Just feel around in there until you've got it. And there she is. And that's our pilot jet. So we have a good look through this, make sure that we can see daylight from one side through to the other, and just really give it a good inspection just to make sure that fuel can definitely pass through it. Pilot jet that I run is a 42.5. Now while you've got that pilot jet out, just inspect the hole there, and what I would definitely do now is just squirt a bit of Carbie cleaner down there just to make sure that it's clean. Alright, so that's cleaned out now. I'm happy with it. So now we're going to reinstall the pilot jet. If you cross thread it, that's fine. Nothing wrong with cross threading jets. No, I'm joking. Don't cross thread the jet. Jesus. So now we're going to look at the main jet. Best to use a bit of a bigger screwdriver, especially if she's a bit stuck. So that's your main jet, and as I can see, there's actually a bit of skank around that. If you make that out, there's a bit of skank around there, so I'm going to give that a good clean out too. Yeah, it's a lot better now. And then while we've got that out, I'm going to give a good, this is actually in here, it's called your emulsion tube. Let's show you this. I don't know if I can actually pull it out. It's generally pretty difficult. No, I can't. You have to sort of bang it from one side or the other to get it out. It's pretty unnecessary. But while I've got it out, you can see that there's a fair bit of skank in here. I'm going to give this all a good clean out with some Carbie cleaner. Alright, so that's all cleaned out now. We'll replace our cap. We'll just replace our brass cap on there. It goes on there like so. We put our main jet back in. Give her a bit of a tweak up. You don't have to go too hard. All done. So once that's in place there, just apply a bit of pressure and she's done. So that is the float, operational, absolutely perfect. Bottom end of this Carbie is now rebuilt. Perfect Japanese craftsmanship. So now all we do, let's put the float bowl back on, and you'll see that this section here needs to go down in there, and it literally just falls into place. Don't try and put any pressure on it, it's just going to fall into place there nicely. So now I'm just going to pull this out, which is pretty fiddly. This is our little gauze filter. It's an inline filter. If you haven't got fingernails, I wouldn't know what you'd do. I'm struggling here actually. Oh, there we go. So as you can see here, that is full of crap. So I'm going to give that a blast out and get that all clean again and then put it back in. So that's clean as a whistle now, and that is like the finest gauze you'll ever see in your life. It's like surgical grade Japanese gauze in there. So that's going back in. It should be good for another 15,000 Ks. That's now back in. Alright, so now we're going to pop the top off this thing and see what she looks like underneath.
Baby.
Honey, I'm in the middle of doing the video. Now, what were you saying? So yeah, obviously I've replaced these again with Allen keys. Make it a lot easier. Something that everyone should do. Trying to muck around with Phillips head screwdrivers, not my idea of fun. So underneath here is basically a rubber membrane. Now the main thing that we want to look at here is pulling out this slide. It's just the condition of the membrane. As you can see, it's actually got a fair bit of dust and crap in there. Lots of dust and crap. So this I will replace. Definitely. It's my needle, still looks excellent. And up in the top of the carb there, you can see that again, a lot of dust and crap in there. So you really want to get stuck into this. So that's all been cleaned out beautifully now. As you can see, perfect, absolutely A1 condition. So now we'll have a look at the top here. So this is your slide and that's your membrane at the top. So that membrane pumps up and down. This is my needle. So we'll have a look at my needle settings. So I spent a fair bit of time, pulled the Carbie off several times, rode it just to get this needle right. I think it's one of by far the most important things that you can get right. So the needle has this top section here, and then it has a bunch of positions. So the needle has a bunch of positions, 5 positions I think, or 6. And then at the top there, it's just got a little circlip. And to change the needle position, well, all you got to do is push that circlip off and change the position. And by doing so, what that does is the needle will actually be lowered or raised in that emulsion tube. So it comes up or goes down just by changing the position. Now, if it's all the way down, so if that position there of the clip is at the top, it's in its leanest position, and if it's at the bottom, it's at its richest position. I went through this a fair bit, did a fair bit to it, changed it around a few times before I actually got happy with how the bike ran to give me excellent fuel economy around the 5 litres per 100. Now this is my slide, and I was telling you before I did a modification here. So the Pro Cycle tip is to drill an extra hole just here in the slide. Highly recommended that you do that. because yeah, the bike has been amazing ever since putting this jetting kit through it. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this old membrane off. It's just a matter of popping it over, and that's it. She's off. So that's as good as a spare. I'll keep it, yeah, but I'll definitely be replacing that with a new one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean this slide up, make it all beautiful, and put it back together again. Alright, so that's all done, nice and clean. And I also, because this is going to be attached to rubber, just going to apply a bit of silicone on there. Before I put on the new membrane. Just like that, done. That's beautiful and clean and ready to be reapplied. So I'll just put my needle back in, pop the clip back on it, drop it in. Hopefully it comes out the right hole. Never does. Sorry honey, got it in the wrong hole. And there she is. All done. Now, the slide has to go down and the needle enters into that hole at the bottom. Just like that. So I just like to put a bit of silicone around there. Not everyone does. Some people tell you it doesn't do shit, but it's just what I do. So that's that all done. Now here's my cap. So what we have here is just basically the cap that keeps the vacuum. So I'm going to give this a good clean out. I'm going to replace that little bottom section there. Spring looks good. And put it all back together. So that's all clean there, sparkling clean inside. Now I'm just going to replace this spring clip, this spring retainer, whatever you want to call it. Put a new one in. Just make sure that's all the way seated down inside that spring. And that goes back onto our section there. Now there's also another little O-ring up the top here for the vacuum. I'm going to replace that too. So just rip that out. Could be a bit of a pain. If you can't get it, just grab a little grab our other O-ring. As you can see, they flare up quite a bit. So there's a bit of a difference between the two. Pop the new one in. Firmly tighten these up. There you have it. All done. So there you have it. That's one rebuilt Mikuni carburetor ready to go back in for another many thousand kilometers. So now I've actually got all my old parts and a few spares in there as well that I didn't use. So if I'm ever out in the middle of the bush doing the Simpson, whatever, I know that I can basically completely rebuild this Carbie on the side of the track. That is now my spares kit for my Carbie.